Mulligans. How's it going, everybody? You looked at the title, you know that we're going to be talking about mulligans and cEDH today, but you know that we also first have to talk about Patreon and merch and stuff, right? Huge shout out to all my patrons over on Patreon, especially the big $10 patrons, LF Cruz, Def Cat, Neo Venus. Oh my god, you guys are paying so much money for this. Doesn't even make any sense. But $5 patrons this month get access to this Nagila playmat, which is dope. I designed it. It looks really cool. And it's got mana trackers, so you don't have to use tokens. Isn't that nifty? I hate using tokens. They get everywhere. It's a freaking mess. On top of that, we also got merch. New merch. Nagila shirt, Yurka shirt, Corvold shirt. They're all really cool. Again, designed by me. You're going to like them. Go buy them. If you don't like them, tell me why, and I'll make something that you will buy. What's the issue with mulligans in cEDH? Why are you doing it wrong, probably? Because it's very hard. There's an article by Matt Sperling over on Eminence that you should check out, where he talks about some heuristics, and he gets a little more analytical than I will. But one really key thing that he said that I absolutely wanted to echo here is the default in cEDH should be that you mulligan a hand. Every hand you look at, you need to be convincing yourself, why should I keep this? Because the default should be that you get rid of it because it's probably not good enough. Why is it probably not good enough? Because this is an incredibly high variance format, right? You have Singleton. The gap between your good cards and your not as good cards is giant. There are cards in your deck that are just massively better than the rest of them. When you have your heuristics and your Docksides and your Espers and your Mystic Remoras and all this nonsense, those cards are so much better than everything else. So when you're looking at your first 7, you're only looking at 7 cards. You're not that likely to get one of them. But then you go to second 7, you look at 14 cards. You go to 6, you get to look at 21 cards. You go down to 5, you get to look at 28 cards. And this is where all the little new blue farm players start getting really spooked. But if it's not good, you should go deeper. Go to 4. Because if you lose with that 4, it's the same as if you lost with that 7, except that you tried harder and I'm more proud of you. So we know cards, the quality is all over the place, so we got a mulligan hard. Lands and spells aren't enough. You've got 3 other opponents who are trying to do broken stuff. Maybe they didn't mulligan hard, but maybe they're going to get rewarded for being lazy. Sometimes that happens. You can get rewarded for the wrong decisions. It's key to be able to try to understand that that's a thing in the game and that you aren't here for individual wins. That's one thing you should get out of your head, especially if you're new. It's not about winning this game. It's about getting good. The wrong decision, yeah, sometimes it's going to win you a game. But more importantly, the right decisions are going to win you a tournament. They're going to win you 100 games. You keep making good decisions. So that's what we're focusing on. We're focusing on our decision making, not our dubs. When you're looking at that opening hand, you got to be thinking, what does this do for me? What is my game plan? Every game, your game plan is decided by 2 things: your opening hand and your commander. That's the game plan you need to be starting with at the beginning. If you're relying on top decks, you've already kind of going down this rabbit hole. You're making some fallacies here already. Look at that opener. Where do I go from here? Talk yourself through the first couple turns. You look at that 7-card hand. I know I can do turn 1 land, maybe a Mox Diamond into 2-drop creature. If it's like an Archivist of Ogma or something like that. And maybe turn 2, you're getting to play your Tymna. That's pretty good. You got some mana advantage. You got a lot of card advantage in the play. You got a lot going for you. That's probably a good start to a game plan, especially if you see that you have a little bit of interaction in your opening hand or maybe a tutor or 2 to really smooth out things, keep you safe in the early game, get yourself going. So having a path towards your own win, understanding what game state benefits you, right? So if you're playing something like Rogsai, keeping a hand that has 2 or 3 counters to try to make it to where you get actual good cards, not really something you're trying to do. You're trying to get underneath your opponents. Counter magic is nice. Sometimes you're going to use it reactively instead of proactively, but overall, that's not what your deck is trying to do. Understanding what your deck's trying to do, looking at that opener, making a game plan with it, that's what we're here for. So we know what we're looking for. We know what our game plan is. Now we got to play it out and see what happens. That's the most important part of all of this, is keeping track of your results, right? What we're here to do is learn. So every game is like an experiment. This is your time to figure out what works and what doesn't. Keep your hand and then keep up with what happens with it. If you kept what seemed like a really good hand, but then you got punished by things that you can reasonably expect to see in each game, maybe it wasn't that good of a hand. If you kept a hand and then realized like, oh, you know what? This would have been way better on the play or going second, but I was going 4th. This ended up being a pretty greedy keep and I was just too slow and I couldn't get back into the game. It's really important that you, especially when you're new and you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, that you're keeping track of what happens with these hands, where you get punished, where you go wrong, and take that knowledge with you into the next game. Again, we're not trying to learn cEDH Clout Chasers hate him, one weird tip to mulligan perfectly every single time. We're here to get tools to help us get better at mulliganing, because there isn't one perfect tip. A lot of the best players, they're still, they're not 100% sure in a lot of their mulligan decisions and a lot of their decisions, because there's so many factors. Sometimes you're going to keep the right hand and you'll get wrecked for it because the entire table is holding up a mental misstep for everything you do because you're playing blue farm. Nobody likes you except for me. I still like you. So that's the big thing. We want to understand we cannot be loss averse. We got to go hard. Nobody else is going to help us out. We got to have a game plan with that hand. We got to look at it, understand what we're doing, what we're trying to do. How does this get us there? A lot of that can come from joining in some of these deck-specific discords where you can send these other really big nerds your pictures and talk about your mulligans, and they're going to tell you their opinion, because there's nothing Magic players love more than giving you their opinion. And 3, we're going to track all of this. We're going to keep in mind how it went, try to figure out what went wrong, what went different, and then we're going to take that into game 2. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to make decisions with more experience. We're going to take that into game 3, and we're going to keep doing that forever. There is no perfect way to mulligan. There's always new cards and new decks. There's a quadrillion different possibilities in every game. And so all you can do is try to hone yourself in to be the best player that you can, make good decisions, and do your best. We're going to be covering mulligans over on the Learning cEDH podcast. If you haven't checked that out, it's great. It's specifically for you if you're a new player. We talk in huge detail about a lot of key concepts like the staples and the deck archetypes, things like that. We're going to be talking about mulligans, and it's going to be a great place for you to check that out. Again, if you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe. Consider supporting me over on Patreon. Consider buying my merch. Consider just telling me I did a good job. If you have any tips for players about how they can mulligan better, please go into the comments below. Let them know. Or join my Discord. Anybody who's looking for help on mulligan advice, head over to there. I'll talk to you. Better players than me will talk to you. Let's figure it out. This has been Lemora's Cards. Game on.